the first to know. Nsem-Pii TV.
Lead counsel for former Chief Justice Yemami Gertrude Araba Isaba Saki Tokunu eni abrepa a enye asem kotwa because the manner of how NDC amanyuko no pese one eguma me no anim ase no ye abro so na yebeka ya former auditor general yewura Yawo Dumelovo ekokopie mu ewo KSM show so ena ono ede kokotu edwa se sa evidence lead counsel edema former CJ edeba be pie mu ewo committee no anim no evidence no odeba emi nyina na eye fake na eno ena etimi ajinja lawyer Ayikoo Otoo ono esan eye former AG ama waba beka se nsem na Dumelovo edeba betu dwa no eye shocking ena afa esan ye disheartening na the one eye nyina eye purpose say one edibe gu chief justice no animase because krata ono edi kokopie mu committee no anim no na yade se eye kroje mfumso bia eni ho yenko tie Ayikoo Otoo.
We all heard him, and it's rather shocking and rather disconcerting to hear such a thing coming from a respected former Auditor General. He tells us that the letter is fake because it was signed by the Judicial Secretary and not the President. And he was trying to look for the word warrant when he was saying that there's a scroll in Ghana colors that is given to the person. That is what called a warrant. When the president gives you a warrant, having appointed you to a particular office, and you go to that office, those there, the head of administration, the spending officers, will now write to you to inform you of what your full entitlements are. Because the warrant only says that you have been appointed to an office. It could not contain all the perquisites of office, including whether you travel first class or business class, whether you are entitled to a clothing allowance, whether you are entitled to leave, what your salary will be, and whatever. So, in this case, the Judicial Secretary, who is the spending officer, when, after the appointment, then writes to the Chief Justice that, referencing your appointment as Chief Justice, these are some of the benefits or perks of office. One of them is that you will travel 2 times in a year. You are entitled full expense by the Judicial Secretary. And there is a travel policy which says that you can go with one person of your own choice. So when the Chief Justice was ready to travel, she informed her that, look, I'll be embarking on my vacation and I want to go to a particular place. So can you work on those things? It is they who then worked on the per diem. They bought the tickets, said, I want to travel with my husband. And then they also bought ticket for the husband. In terms of their travel policy, when you are giving a per diem, whatever amount is given to you, the person you are traveling with will be given half of that amount. Now, you know that we are dealing with a public office, and therefore they are subjected to audit by the Auditor General. So that year, the auditors went there, and they raised a query regarding the travel and the tickets that were bought. And then the spending officer, that is the person who is usually held liable when infractions, financial infractions occur in an organization, explained, because if you know what audit is, the auditors will come and do their work, then they will give the draft to the auditee, ask the auditee to respond If they are satisfied with their responses, then in their final, what we call management letter, the thing does not appear anymore. So when these things were raised, they were given to the spending officer, the principal spending officer being the judicial secretary, who explained that by virtue of the travel policy, whatever was done properly. And therefore, the Chief Justice had done nothing wrong. Predictably, when it came to the management letter, they removed those queries from it. Now, this is why I brought in Dumelovo. Having occupied that high office, I believed that he would have explained the issues to his colleagues on the committee. But this is the one who rather goes out to say that the woman actually committed breaches, financial breaches, which amounted to stated misbehavior, and that she ought to be removed. One would have thought that once the auditees or the spending officer's explanations were accepted and the thing did not appear anymore in the management letter, that will end the matter. So why did he go back to do those things? This is why I said the committee ignored crucial evidence that we put before them, and I've singled him out. I didn't say that I gave all my evidence to him. Who is he? Is he the Supreme Court judge who has sitting? Does he understand law? So I said, having regard to his position, I felt he would have explained, but he let us down big time. We didn't even know, because as I speak to you today, they have never given us the report and the recommendations. So we don't even know what they relied upon until he went and opened his mouth to say that the letter which we tendered to show that we were entitled to 2 travels in a year, and that we took advantage of the travel policy and went, which was legitimate, is now telling us that that letter was fake. And so they did not place any premium on it. Hasn't he proved in my point when I said that they ignored very important and crucial evidence? Hasn't he proved my point? And what is disheartening is that somebody who goes about auditing people ought to know some of these things. Now, I'll cite 2 examples. I was appointed Attorney General and Minister of Justice. They will take you to a big room where the president will swear all of you in, and then they'll give you the warrants. When I left that place, I received a letter from Secretary to the President, D.K. Osei, setting out all my entitlements. It was not D.K. Osei who was appointing me, but he wrote that letter to me. Now, when I was appointed,
so this is
Canada.
Mr. Otoo, 1 second. So this is in response to the claim that the judicial secretary, who is junior to the Chief Justice, was the one.
The volume is a bit low.
I'm saying that is this better now?
Yes.
Okay. So what you just pointed out, the example you cited of your own appointment to the office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice, post receiving the warrant from the President, you also received a letter from the Secretary to the President. But this was written on the authority of the President and not necessarily from the powers of the office of the Secretary to the President.
Yes.
And this is in response to Mr. Dumelovo's claim that the Judicial Secretary was the one who appointed the Chief Justice.
Because the Judicial Secretary is a junior officer who ought not sign such a letter appointing her. She did not appoint her. She only referenced her appointment and gave her conditions of service.
Right. Please carry on.
And let me cite the second example so that the public will understand. I was appointed High Commissioner to Canada. We went for a big function at the Jubilee House. We were giving our warrants. We came back home. Later, we were told to go and collect some letters from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I refused initially, saying that I was not appointed by anybody in that ministry, so I'm not going for the letter. They said, no, you have to, because first of all, you have now been made a foreign service official with the grade they call A1. And so you have to go for your conditions of service. And when I went, those conditions of service was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. It was not the president. The president had already done his work. And so this is what obtains in the public service. How come that Dumelovo is telling us that he doesn't know and that any such letter is fake? How? That's my beef. Okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, so this is to say that the letter that was or is allegedly fake was an authentic document.
But how else how would you describe it? I've explained to you that it is the spending officer who will now write to you and tell you that these are your conditions. And because they were investigating conditions, whether in fact the travel she embarked upon, including the purchase of tickets to himself and the husband or the daughter on another occasion, and the per diem which were paid, are all lawful or legitimate. That was why we tendered that letter. And he's telling us that he considered the letter fake, so he didn't look at it because it was never signed. You played the full audio, didn't you? You played everything. You heard it. That it was not signed by the president.
Indeed. Now, you mentioned that your evidence was not properly considered. What processes or standard of review do you believe was violated or set aside in the inquiry?
Oh, that is the point I made to you. We explained to them how come that those expenditures were actually incurred. We explained that to them. And we showed that the management letter did not raise the issue anymore. And so that ended the matter. And this is why we are disappointed that an experienced auditor who knows what it means to talk about a management letter is rather telling us that he refused to consider the evidence we put before him because he considered the letter as fake. Not for any reason, but he stated it clearly that it was because it was signed by the Judicial Secretary, who was junior to the Chief Justice, and that he expected the President or the Chief Justice to have tendered the letter signed by the President himself. But that is not the practice in the public service. And so I'm surprised that somebody whose duty it is to deal with expenditures involving public service would rather turn around to tell us that such things, when they happen, amounts to fraud. That's what he's telling us, that the letters she wrote, the letters we tendered and all that amounted to fraud, which is very surprising. That if you can use this to remove a Chief Justice of the land, a head of a whole arm of government, then it is most unfortunate what other people are suffering. We also tendered the policies of travel. They call this revision of rates of foreign travel allowances and classes of air travel by public service office holders, 11th December 2020. we tendered this letter, and this letter made it clear that members of the judiciary and parliamentary service have been excluded. Applicable rates are approved by their councils. So the judicial is not to follow the travel policy or what they call administrative guidelines for the implementation of foreign travel policies, but they should zoom in to their judicial council, which is their governing board. Do you know why? Because of financial independence that they've given to them. They don't want them to be ruled or controlled by the public. So they said, go and do your own thing based upon what your council will approve. So if you listen to him carefully, he kept saying that if the council, indeed, what the council did was wrong because they did not have any mandate to do that. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Now, if they did not have mandate to do that, is it the problem of the person who benefited? Is it not the judicial service and the council itself whom you should hold liable? Which is why in all audits, you don't hold the head of the institution, but rather you hold the spending officer liable. It is he who should pay from his pocket if he goes ahead to engage in wrong expenditures. Do you understand?
That's right.
So why are you using this? But of course, you've got to understand that as at the time he was doing, before they even came, they had made it clear that they were going to remove her. So they were just finding excuses to remove her and were sending delegations to her, asking her to resign, which she said she will not do because you don't have any grounds to remove me. So I want you to produce the evidence, bring the evidence to show that I am liable to be removed. And that's what we have exhibited. They just couldn't find one. Now they are saying that she even transferred an officer of the judicial service. My brother, when did transfer become a ground for removal of somebody ahead that he has transferred you? If you are not comfortable, go to your local union to complain that, look, I'm not comfortable with this transfer. But when did it become a ground for removal of a head, not an ordinary head, but head of a judiciary that he has transferred somebody, when constitutionally the administrative power is given to her, the day-to-day administration, the entire judiciary is under her. And you are saying she cannot transfer. So this is used as stated misbehavior to remove her from office. For advising that we should expand the Supreme Court because they seem to have such large number of cases, and therefore the 15 is not sufficient. Let's make it 20. You said it did not pass through the Judicial Council, which is a lie, because she went to the Judicial Council to inform them that the president has asked that, having satisfied himself that there's a need to expand, he should make representation. And therefore, he gave some names to the president. How can that be an offense for which she should be, removed? How can such petty things be used to remove a chief justice? Meanwhile, when this new government came, within the shortest possible time, they elevated about 5 or 7 Court of Appeal judges to the Supreme Court, citing her as having said that there's a need to indeed expand. Having benefited from her advice, you have turned around, now vilifying and using that same excuse to remove her from office.
Now, the statements that Mr. Dumelovo made were made in the public. We all remember that the request that the proceedings be held and be made available to the public was denied. That request was denied, meaning that everything was supposed to be under confidentiality rules. Does it bother you that Mr. Dumelovo has made these public statements referring to things that happened within this so-called private, in-camera proceedings?
Well, let us even go back. You recall that when this petition was filed, some aspects were seeped or leaked into the public, and it was all on social media. There was a particular one which said that she was given $14,000+ on her travel and that she has failed to account for it. Civil society organization, and I saw a big individual like Imani's president, Francis Kojo, saying
Franklin Kojo,
and other claims this woman should have been facing jail. I was surprised that you would not even look at the evidence that within 3 days that the woman returned to Ghana, she retired the entire impress and gave back part of the money which she did not use. But because they wanted to damage her reputation in the public domain, they put it out there